Hey guys, welcome to. Hi everyone, my name is Star, and today I'm going to show you how I make this acrylic painting using cheap paints and little amount of brushes. Please keep in mind that this is not a step-by-step tutorial because I had to record on my phone and I did not record every single step, which is why I say the level for this tutorial is intermediary, because you have to have enough skill to be able to fill in the blanks by yourself. Also, I'm self-taught and everything I do here is what I've learned based on my experiences. This is not a strict how-to, this is just how I made this painting. So for this video, I'm using M&G 24 color acrylic set. So I used to bigger tubes of Winsor & Newton Galleria acrylic paint in Mars Black and Titanium White. And you might see me unwrap my plates often, which is what I use as my palette, and I use acrylic paint so it tends to dry out. So what I do is wrap my plates with the plastic, which is what you're seeing now. I also have two disposable cups with water in them, which I used to wash my paint brushes. It's not the best setup, but everything is quite improvised. And this is the frame I'll be using. It's originally a picture frame, but I don't like it that way. So the first step for me is to completely cover the picture in a layer of color, a thick layer, because this is on wood surface and it didn't hold on to paint. The paint just kept sliding on the canvas and I had to do quite a number of layers of paint, consumed a lot of paint, and I had to let it dry. Okay, I can explain. The main purpose for this painting was to hang it up in my room, and I wanted something with lots of blues, so my initial idea was to paint a sky scenery, but I did not like how it was going and I didn't think it would look good in the room. So I decided to start all over and do a new idea on it, which led to the birth of this painting. The surface was really hard to work on because not only did it not hold paint, it also did not dry on time. Because I needed to stack the layers because the paint did not hold. When I come back to put another layer, they both just slide right off. It was very hard to work with. Here I had the idea to sketch in two figures. I wanted two figures to be in the painting and I decided I wanted it to be a mother figure and a child, a daughter. So I'm drawing it in with pencil. I used the chalk to make my sketch and I don't recommend it because the chalk comes out under the paint. Like even after a week of painting, I still had to wipe off chalk from my painting. I used to use something that stays on and that you can see for your sketch. I still haven't found what works for me yet. I wanted the painting to have a lot of blues, which was why I chose the sky idea in the first place. And now I come up with a method of making the paint stay easier without too many layers, and which was dabbing on the paint with the brushes. I would do 2 layers of dabbing on, and after a long time for acrylic, I could come over and paint the last layer normally, and it worked that way. I made another blue because I wanted the figures to have a certain type of clothing. This is called buba and iro, which is worn by the western parts of Nigeria, and I made them have 2 different shades of blue, a lighter one and a darker one, and I chose their poses and the way they fold their hand to mimic a photo shoot. Making your sketch, keep in mind that I made mine with the intention that they would look like they are sitting, that they would eventually sit on something. In the initial sketch, I gave them circular head because I had intended to give them onion heads because I just finished an onion painting. At this stage, I will still have the second thoughts if I wanted them to have normal head and skin tone and all that. I concluded that since it was for my bedroom, I didn't want some weird faces. Decided I'd go with a fantasy look of clouds instead. Meanwhile, this paint was filled with air. There was barely anything inside. I did not recommend. Before I started drawing the cloud heads, I thought it would be wise to cover up the background, and I decided that I still wanted more blues and I still wanted to have a sky background. And I still wanted the old background to show so I could see through that cloud effect and have some depth. And I had done a very thin layer with a flat brush, which had lots of lines showing because it was a small flat brush and it was a thin layer. So I'm using this dry, small filbert brush, I think, to blend out the harsh lines. And although it's really small and inconvenient, it worked really well and I could see the difference. First cloud head, and then I tilted my canvas to get the leaning effect on the smaller figure. I did keep going back and forth between the clouds to touch up. I think I must have miscalculated because the next space on this one is really big, but I'll try to do the thing. At this point, I decided that I did not want them to be normal people or have skin tones or anything like that. I decided that they would be cloud people, so their hands and the rest of their bodies are either invincible or they are clouds. I think an important part of creativity is not always having well-defined plans, but sometimes we should go into things with an open mind and see where that leads us, because that too can be amazing in its own. I added a sort of green grass scene because I wanted it to be like a hill scene in the background. As you can see, none of this is planned. Everything just seems to be taking shape as it comes together, and that relieves me any tension of what would I do next, what should I add, because it all just seems to come. Now I'm cleaning up their hands and any other scenes, but I've taped up the edges of the figures because I intend to add the bench in soon. Unfortunately, I have no videos of me painting the bench, but I used an impasto method with a palette knife, and I taped the edges of the bench too because I had to layer on thick paint and I didn't know how to crisp edges, so I lined them up with tape. That's why the bench looks very glossy, because all I did was put on a lot of paint and smoothen it out with my palette knife and let it dry before I took off the tapes. Taking out the tape, and in some parts the edges were really crisp, but in some parts it didn't work as well. So here I did some touch up and I decided that I wanted flowers in this painting, and I started preparing for that. The more time I spent on this painting, the more personal it got, the more intentional choices and decisions I made, and I'm starting to grow attached to it emotionally, and it just became a sort of mirror. It was truly an expression for me. And my first flower in place, and I'm not even done, but it's like the first one. But I'm a bit worried about how I'll cover underneath, because I know if I paint it now, I won't be able to see my pencil over it. So I will have to paint it and then try to cover underneath. So look at my first flower, and it looks so good with the rest of the painting. I'm excited.
At this point, I added another flower, and it was so pretty. I was so proud of it. I had a list of flowers that I wanted to add on my phone, but unfortunately for me, I changed my phone around this point and I did not back up anything at all. But the bench was so good looking. I was really impressed by how glossy and pretty it was. It was so shiny. I wanted to add more details, more wooden details to it to make it look more realistic, but I loved how different it looked compared to the rest part of the painting that I decided to just leave it like that. I really liked it this way. During this time, I keep doing touch-ups, and since I no longer had my list of flowers, I was really liking the thick paint effect that I decided to make all the other flowers in pastel and thick. I was quite satisfied by how messy and non-rigid it looked. So fun and free, and this was the easiest and my favorite part of the entire painting. I had taped aside because I really liked the frame, but now I had to consider getting the paint off the frame. But look at that tape pull.
That's what I'm talking about.
So satisfying. struggle. Right.
That's a big up red iron.
Was not completely dry and I almost made a huge mistake. Now I completely taken off all the tapes, but the frame itself was still dirty, and that was what I had to clean up using some soft brush and some water. Because it's acrylic paint, it came right off. My nails had been stained with paint. Very happy to finish this and put this up because the rest of my room arrangement was done, and this was the final piece to the room decor. So that is how I made this painting. This painting is called Is It Cool to Worry? And I'm glad I was able to find purpose in the creative process. So essentially that's me and my mom. I know that's crazy because there are no faces, but she's the one person that I find it's easy for me to communicate my worries to, and she's so good at making me feel much better, because sometimes I spiral so hard that I wonder if it's even okay for me to spiral so hard, for me to worry and be so sad. Like, is this normal? Is everybody this sad? Is everybody this worried? So is it cool to worry is a question that I genuinely ask myself. I want to know, is it cool to worry? Do people worry? But yeah, that's me and my mom. And sometimes when I worry, it's hard to remember that the skies are so blue and there's still flowers, and this painting is just a reminder of that. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, like and subscribe and come back again. Bye.